All right. And it did that again. So obviously, a lot of you have been either in college before, at least last semester, if not, you're a transfer student who's been through it before that. And so you kind of have it sounds like a general understanding of how financial aid works, kind of what are some of the core components. We're going to get into some of the nuances a little bit more today, and I'll talk a little bit more about what some of the things, especially here at CSU, to keep in mind, some tips and things to acknowledge, including upcoming dates for resources that we have in the AAC, and then give you some specific information on resources that will hopefully help you through the rest of your time here at CSU. My presentation usually actually can take like an hour and a half, and I'm going to scrunch it into about 40 minutes now, 35 minutes. So I'm going to go kind of fast on this. I'm also going to go off the assumption that, like I said, you kind of know some of these things already rather than just the basic general information. So I'll give you all some credit there. And if I skip over something, you're like, I have no idea what he's talking about. Again, don't hesitate, interrupt me, let me know. So as you know, most of your information on financial aid can be accessed through RamWeb. So in your RamWeb, on the drop-down menu, obviously, there's going to be financial aid tab you can click on to look at your financial aid award, your financial aid packet for this year, as well as you can start to look at it for next year, though it's still early in February. So since financial aid, scholarships, and FAFSA priority deadline aren't until March 1st, we do still have a little time before your financial aid packets start for next year, start to get finalized. And when I say packet, I mean that includes like grants, scholarships, loan offers through federal loans. That might include work study. That's what they call your financial aid packet. It's like all of those things clumped together and what you're offered for next year for the upcoming semester. But since we're still a little early in the semester, most of you all won't get a initial financial aid packet put together by the Office of Financial Aid until likely like mid-March here. And I see a chat question. Nope, okay. So mid-March about, if you've already filled out your FAFSA, you did it maybe even last year for next year. You did it, when it opened up in October or November, great. You still probably won't get to know what your financial aid will look like for next year until mid to late March, honestly. Some of you might have gotten a few things already assigned that are determined, but other things will get adjusted. The other thing to know is year to year, you actually semester to semester, your financial aid packet could get adjusted depending on if you have additional scholarships or major changes in your FAFSA from year to year. If your FAFSA stays pretty consistent in terms of like what you are reporting on your taxes or your parents, if you're a dependent with your parents, if that stays pretty consistent, you can pretty much assume that your financial aid will more or less stay consistent. Again, with the exception being you might be able to get more scholarships. How they figure out your financial aid packet is they base it on estimated cost of attendance. That's all of these things, tuition, books, housing, and meals. They include in what it's estimated you're going to have to pay for housing, food and room and board. Maybe transportation if you're a commuter student. If you're going to study abroad, sometimes they'll already, if they know that, they're going to calculate that in. And they estimate how much your yearly, each semester they break down, but your yearly academic amount will be. This was from 2018. This was a generic student in our office. I know tuition rates have gone up, and as you become a junior and senior, as you exceed 60 credits here at CSU, that includes transfer credits, you'll started to get charged differential tuition for a lot of your classes. It depends on your major and it depends on the classes, but especially STEM students, students in different colleges like Ag Sciences, Natural Sciences, Natural Resources, Vet Med, Biomedical, College of Business, College of Engineering, and I'm forgetting one. Did I say Vet Med, Biomedical? Anyway, those classes as a junior and senior get charged for the most part differential tuition. I left out liberal arts. If you're a liberal arts student, most of your upper division classes don't get charged differential tuition. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but basically you kind of luck out. Now there might be a few classes with that, but it's going to be the majority that don't. Anyway, that means your tuition costs, regardless of the general base tuition at CSU, will start to rise each year, each semester, which is kind of a bummer. So it's important to continuously be like vigilant, diligent about getting as much financial aid as you can each semester to help pay for it. Any questions about estimated cost of attendance? They also, I forgot to mention this, you probably know this too, but they also factor in your EFC, which is expected family contribution. That is what is essentially the number on after you fill out FAFSA. That's the number that financial aid offices, not just CSU, but everywhere, financial aid offices across the country, that's the number they typically will use to also determine if you have a higher level of need for other types of financial aid, like grants, loans, and work study. Not necessarily scholarships, but those things do factor in. So EFC and estimated cost of attendance, that's sort of what they use to help navigate what your financial aid will look like. All right, grants and scholarships. I apologize for this being really blurry. This is a huge list. This student was awarded a ton of grants and scholarships. Go them. Most students don't get awarded this much stuff, but this is a good snapshot of what is like potentially available, right? So grants, those are going to be awarded to you sometimes without you having done anything other than filling out FAFSA, right? You have to fill out FAFSA to be eligible for these grants. Some of them are federal, like Pell. Pell grant is a federal grant. Some grants, and those are usually based on your financial need. Some grants are institutional from CSU, like the, let's see, where was that one? Is it on here? CSU Tuition Assistance Grant or the RAM grant. And some of them are state from Colorado. So like if you're an in-state resident, you might get the Colorado Student Grant, Supplemental Colorado Student Grant, or the tuition, where's the other one? There's a Colorado Tuition Assistance Grant as well. So this student had examples of federal, institution and state. Those will change from year to year, what grants you're offered. They will change from semester to semester. For example, the student here, where was that one? Okay, they got offered, never mind, they got offered the same amount. This is not a great example. But anyway, students might get offered $500 of a grant in the fall semester, and in the spring, for whatever reason, based on your financial aid stuff, you might get offered $900 of a grant. It can fluctuate. One piece of advice is never, ever, ever just count on grants. Francie, you got a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. So if you get an outside scholarship, does grants get taken away from you or no?
Great question. Yeah, so how that works is grants, since they're free money and oftentimes you don't have to do anything to get them other than maybe have demonstrated need for them, they might be the first thing that gets pulled if you get a bunch of scholarships. Now, scholarships, the next thing I was going to mention, if you apply for a ton of scholarships, that's good. And especially if you get awarded a bunch, that's good. They will give you that money. They can't, if you are awarded a scholarship, they can't like pull money away from a scholarship that is given to you. Unless it's from like a private donor, a private scholarship that suddenly has to change what they agreed to pay you. Sometimes there's legal things where they can't do that. But that's incredibly rare that number would ever change once you're awarded that scholarship. It's like almost guaranteed. Grants, however, let's say it's March 20th this semester. You check your financial aid for next year, right? 2021, 2022 year. And you were awarded the Colorado Tuition Assistance Grant, or let's say it's $1,500 for the fall semester. But then you receive like 4 scholarships exceeding $2,000, $3,000 each, which is great. And you suddenly get in all this extra scholarship money, and then the university is like, ooh, actually, you got all the scholarship. Now you have exceeded how much financial aid you need based on your estimated cost of attendance, right? And they do try to factor in, again, housing. They try to keep that in mind and other expenses. But if it exceeds your tuition, your CSU bill, and potential estimated cost, then they might cut some of your grant that you were given. Yes, that has happened. Other times where they've done that, it's rare, but other times they've done that is if you get a bunch of scholarships, you have some grants, and then you need work study because you get a job on campus. In order to receive work study, and that sometimes is the only way to keep a job, is because some jobs require you to have work study. In order to keep the work study to keep the job, they might cut into your grants. What they've been trying to do lately is actually, if you were offered federal loans, either subsidized or unsubsidized loans, instead of cutting from your grant, they've been trying to cut from that loan offer first. So you keep the grant money as much as possible. Okay, that's what they've been trying to do. Everyone in here, your circumstance is going to be unique and different based on your circumstances and financial aid situation. So if you have further questions, I'll mention this 100 times, which is talk to financial aid, also talk to your retention specialist, because if they can't help you answer that or figure out what that looks like for next year, they can direct you right to financial aid, and which I'll give you all the contact info for our liaison over there, and that person can help answer questions. Okay, good question. Are there any other questions on that? Okay, scholarships, oops, I'm gonna go back real quick. Scholarships, as you know, oftentimes are also sometimes awarded for just a year, or they might be awarded for multiple years or multiple semesters. If they're awarded for multiple semesters, it's just really important, as you might know again, to double check how to renew your scholarship for the next year. Some scholarships have specific things you have to do, like DSF, Denver Scholarship Foundation. Some private ones do, where you have to like either fill out some form or indicate you're returning to CSU or whatever, but you have to renew it. Sometimes you don't have to do anything, but it's important to know what your scholarships require so you don't accidentally lose it in the next year just because you missed renewing it through some tiny little step. That's a really important tip. The other tip I'll give on scholarships is, and I'll talk more about scholarship searching here at the end, but to be able to do as much searching and put yourself out there as much as possible, I have students who have applied to like 45, 50 scholarships in a semester and have received, it's paid off because they received like 4 or 5 pretty good scholarships. And that might not seem like you're filling out 45 apps, you're only getting 5 back. That seems like a lot of exhaustion, waste of time. But the truth is, if you only apply to like 3 or 4 and you don't get any, right, it minimizes your chances. So it's better to like put your name out there a ton. Apply for a ton of scholarships. So I'll talk more about CSU Scholarship app here in a minute too. All right, moving into real quick, I'm going to touch on this because I've been skipping over it most days. Loans. I'm going to just real quick touch on this. There's primarily 4 types of loans. The first and foremost one, you might already know about this, is the subsidized loan offered through the federal government. You do have to be somebody who fills out FAFSA to be eligible to receive a subsidized federal loan. But this loan is subsidized by the federal government, meaning there's no interest they're charging because the federal government covers the interest on it, basically. It's subsidized. So taking out that loan first, if you have to take out a loan, is your best bet, right? If you only have to take out, let's say, a couple $100, you know you're going to need it, but you can't come up with that $100 before the billing due date, it might be better just to take out a subsidized loan before you end up trying to figure out like stress and then getting a late charge. We'll talk also about your billing statement here again in a minute. So subsidized loans are your best bet. You don't have to pay them until you graduate, right? You can start making payments if you want earlier, but the general agreement is you don't have to start making payments until after you graduate. And even further, it's 6 months after you graduate or leave the institution. So if you end up withdrawing from school and you have a loan out, 6 months after you withdraw, they will start making you repay your loan. But it's most students end up getting to graduation and then you can pay it 6 months afterwards. If you go into grad school or any kind of post-secondary education, law school, med school, vet school, PA school, right? If you go into a professional degree or a graduate or PhD degree, master's degree, you can defer your loans, meaning you don't have to pay them back while you're back in school. If you go on to get another bachelor's afterwards, you go back to undergrad, same thing. You can defer them so you don't have to make any payments while you're a student. Okay, that's important to know too. When you take out a loan, they're going to walk you through all the logistics of it. If you have questions, it might be good to sit down with your retention specialist. We also offer workshops throughout the year on these kinds of things here in the AAC. So next year, next semester, you'll start to be exposed to some of those workshops if you want to learn more about that. I'm going to breeze back through one other thing with loans. If you need to take out a loan, but you've exhausted your subsidized or unsubsidized options, which unsubsidized loans are also federal, interest rates are pretty low. They're your next best option. If you don't have the option of a parent loan, taking out a parent loan, like this student didn't get offered anything for that, that means it's a loan that your parents take out under their name and you just have to work out with them how to pay them back essentially. That's not an option for everyone, right? Sometimes we're independent students or we don't have that option. But if those three options don't exist, the last resort, you have no other way to pay for college, theoretically, one of the last resorts should be a private loan. We don't want you to take it out. It might have to happen. Some students have had to do it, but those typically have the higher interest rates. So they're not what we always advise. We don't want you graduating with this gross feeling of a ton of debt. I will say most students at CSU still graduate with, on average, $10,000 to $15,000 in debt. That's average of student loan debt. If you get through college with under 10,000, you did pretty good. Some students have to take out small loans here and there, equaling up to 5, 6, 7, 8,000. If you're an in-state student, that can be a win to an extent, honestly, because college is expensive and it's unfortunately right now not getting any cheaper. Fingers crossed that changes with some legislation, but that's not the case yet. Any questions about loan stuff?
Can I just add a few things too?
Yes.
I had to take out loans and I do have around 10,000 and it's not stressed me out too much. So I just wanted to bring like that personal anecdotal into it that I did have to take out loans, but it's not the end of the world. I didn't get a job right after graduating, so I did request to do a deferral period. So I have not had to pay any type of payments for my loans yet. And it's been about like 2 years since I've graduated. So know that the loans are here to help you. They're not here to hurt you at all. And something else that you could do if you need to, if your subsidized or unsubsidized loans like run out, you can ask a financial aid rep if you can get another unsubsidized loan. Because I had to do that because I didn't have enough aid to cover housing. So I asked for another direct unsubsidized loan. So that's another option that you could do too.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. And you made a good point, Nicola. You don't depending on what happens after you graduate, it doesn't have to be just like going into another education program where you can defer. You can defer based on your circumstances as well. You just have to be basically in communication with whoever it is you took the loan out through, right? Federal government, generally, they're actually pretty decent about allowing that. It's run through the Department of Education. It's, I think, going to get better over the next, than it maybe was over the last 4 years. I think it's going to get even better for students and more helpful for students. Private loans, you just need to be in contact with the private loan provider. If it's a bank or some sort of student loan company, yes, typically those private loans like that, they are looking to make money off you, but they will work with you. They generally will. They have to. There's laws that are in place for them to have to work with you on that. So I'll mention that at the end, but don't be totally afraid of taking out loans if it's one of your only options. It can definitely be beneficial just to get through, because to drop out and not finish a degree over a couple thousand that might have been a loan or not, that might be a bad investment for you. The other note is if you get a loan and you end up paying it back on time, you make small payments, right? Once you start paying it back, $50 a month, $100 a month, maybe not even that much, right? But you could start building your credit, which can help you out also. It's another good thing. All right, I'm gonna skip over this. All right, I talked about that, borrow responsibly. You can kind of look at some of that real quick. But I did want to get into a couple of these other questions that were asked earlier. Okay, so talking about other forms of financial aid and scholarships in particular, right? So we talked a little bit about grants, where grants come from. It's not a guarantee, right? You'll receive it next year, so keep tabs on your financial aid. Scholarships, You can get them from all kinds of places. I will say that there are some really good ones within the CSU scholarship application, CSUSA, which again, it's due March 1st. If you haven't completed it yet, bare minimum, get the general application, application part of it completed and submit that. Now, I will say that you're competing primarily against a bunch of other CSU students that fill that out, right? And so just filling out the general application, you might luck out and get something. You might have a strong enough, essay or application. I would strongly encourage and urge you all to look into what are the other scholarships offered that sometimes require additional letters of recommendation or a reference, or maybe an additional essay, right? They require a couple extra steps to apply for them. Because you're competing against less students who do that, honestly. Less students do the extra stuff, take the extra steps. So it'll be better for you to actually do as much as you can put into it. Maybe take a few hours on a weekend, sit down and try to nail out as much as you can on that, right? We also have a couple of workshops coming up specifically geared towards this FAFSA and the CSU scholarship application. And for those of you who might know, if you're an asset student, you could qualify for CAFSA, which is the Colorado version of FAFSA for asset students, basically. Okay. Work study, there's a couple different types. Most work study that you'll get awarded right away is kind of, well, they don't actually call it merit-based anymore or need-based, but it basically is, it's need-based. If your financial aid and your unmet need mixed with your financial situation, if that allows you to qualify for work study, you might get awarded that. However, if you don't get a work study job, within that year that you get awarded it, they will take it away. They won't award you that the next year. So it's in your benefit if you get awarded work study and you actually need it to try to get a work study job, even if it's a very, very part-time type one here on campus or something. If you want that extra little boost of income. The second type of work study is institutional. So the first type of work study, it's federal. It's come a big pool of money, federal money. The second type is non-federal. It's institutional. It's from CSU. CSU has a very small pool of money set aside for a certain number of students. I don't remember the exact number, and I don't know how much they have every year, but to apply for basically institutional work study, CSU institutional work study, and be awarded that so you can get a work study job. You do have to basically apply for that or opt in, and it works. And I know they try to adjust it a little bit every year, but last year it worked on a first come, first served basis. So the application opened up May 1st, I believe, like at 7 in the morning or something like that. And so you could jump online and apply to it through your RamWeb and see if you could get awarded work study. We'll talk more about that as a staff. Maybe your retention specialist can talk to you more about that during your second meeting of the semester if you haven't already had your first. Nicolette, anything to add on that? Okay. All right, let's talk about scholarship searches. So obviously the CSUSA, you can find it on RamWeb. For writing your essay, you'll want to definitely be creative and try to really indicate things about you that make you a strong candidate for a scholarship, right? Talking about your involvement or passions can be a good thing, and talk about what you've done towards working towards either your career, your passions, or your involvement. If you need letters of recommendation, and Nicolette and I can both probably speak from this to this from experience. If you need a letter of recommendation from somebody and you want to ask your retention specialist, I mean, if you want to ask anyone, ask them early, right? Remember, the application is due pretty much on February 28th, March 1st. And if you're asking us on February 26th to write you a letter of rec before the due date, like, it's going to be a frustrating challenge where professors, other advisors, or staff might say no. We might say yes because we feel guilty, but it's gonna be frustrating. So definitely ask us early, right? Get it out there. Ask folks for letters of recommendation early. Cool. All right. Make sure you get a FAFSA done. SAP, I didn't really talk about this. SAP is another way to maintain financial aid from year to year. The basics of SAP, satisfactory academic progress, are that you maintain at least a 2.0 GPA. Okay, and that's cumulative. So if you had a rough fall and you're not doing great this semester, there's still time to bring it up. You want to do that, but you want to do that so you don't risk losing any financial aid, right? So always try to get above a 2.0 to maintain above a 2.0 cumulative GPA. You must be earning, your classes you're taking must be working towards your major, right? That one's pretty standard. Most students don't really diverge away from their major in terms of what they are taking. But it can come into play if a student changes their major and suddenly needs to start working like entirely, like going from communication studies to like vet med or pre-vet, right? Like you need to that semester be taking all classes going towards that new major. And you also, there's a limit, they put a cap on how many credits you can receive. So this one can impact transfer students sometimes. So if you transfer in, let's say 60 credit hours from another institution or a community college, and you're working towards your major, but you know that it's still going to take you 3 years to complete your major rather than just 2, by your senior year, your 5th year or whatever, your last year in college, some students have hit like 150 or 160 credits in total, and they just need to get a few more credits to get their degree. But financial aid will cap you at what they can offer you if you exceed 150% of the credits required for your degree. Meaning, if you got 100, like say 160 credits you've earned, and you still need 3 credits, but you're at over 150% required for your program, they could cut you off. It's a pain in the ass. It sucks for transfer students, and we are trying to work with students around that and help them out. But just know the longer you stay in school, the more credits you accumulate, the less financial aid you'll get. All right, helpful resources, right? Office of Financial Aid, I'll talk more about that in a second. There is a federal student aid website where you can apply for like these things. When you apply for subsidized loans, they'll make you go there and like do the loan counseling to understand it. Your retention specialist, and then there are like some websites on like how to budget or like figure out how to help expand your skills around money and whatnot. So those are there. And then important dates, right? We have a couple here coming up. The AAC is offering these workshops for CSUSA and CSUSA and FAFSA on February 16th, and that's Tuesday next week. And then, right, or is that Monday? I think it's Tuesday. Yeah, it's Tuesday. Yeah, and then February 24th from 4 to 6 p.m. You don't have to show up for the full thing, but if you need help working on your essays, working on your application, whatever, you just want accountability to sit down and just do it, pop into the Zoom link. It's going to show up on the AAC website. I'll show where that is here in a second, like the day before. We also have a specific workshop coming up for essay writing for your CSU scholarship apps and for general scholarships in general on February 18th. You don't have to be there for the full time. Here's the Zoom link. If I can copy and paste this in the chat real quick. Let me just actually go to this. I'll be able to post it. Post in the chat, but if you want to pop into that, you can definitely do that. All right, how am I doing? I've still got, oh, good. I'm doing much better than timing-wise the last few days. And then obviously the billing due date is due on it's due on February 10th. The 10th? It's like, is that today? Today or tomorrow? Anyone remember? Someone help me out.
What are you asking again, Mitch?
The due date.
Cutting out.
Oh, the billing due date.
Today.
Okay, so it's today. Awesome. So each month in a semester, it's typically between the 10th and 12th of the month, right? So your first billing due date for the semester is today. If you are struggling and you can't make your bill, pay your bill, and you're like, oh shit, I have $3,000 to pay off today. I don't have that. What you can do is contact your retention specialist, let them know the situation you're in, but then also you can contact the Office of Financial Aid, and specifically, put her name in the chat here, Brandy Ortiz. This is her email. She is great. L-O-S-T-E. She used to work in another office on campus, and she's got a lot of experience working with students that would, like AAC students. And so she is our liaison, Brandy Ortiz. That's her email in the chat. You can contact her directly, be like, hey, I'm an AAC student. I have these questions or concerns about my financial aid, my bill, whatever. And she can try to help you out, right? Be really specific on what your question or concern is. But what you can do is if you contact financial aid and you're not able to make your payment, you can actually defer it for a month. Sometimes they'll let students defer it for multiple months in a row, depending on their circumstances. So I've had students struggling to figure out how they're going to come up with that, like $2,000 or whatever, instead of worrying about just like not paying it and then getting charged the late fee, which can sometimes exceed, it can be over $150, $200, depending on how much you owe. I believe it's a certain percentage of how much you owe is what they tack on as a late fee. Rather than getting charged that extra late fee, just talk to them. And they can put it in deferment and say, okay, we'll have you pay it off, then we'll move it to next month's due date, see if you can pay it off by then. We won't charge you the late fee, and we won't put a hold on your account. So actually after the March due date, March billing due date of I think it's going to be March 11th actually, they might put a hold on your account if you have an excess balance that you haven't paid off. That will restrict you from registering for summer classes if you're going to do that here at CSU, or fall classes. It also restricts you from a few other things. Having a hold on your account is no fun. So talk to your retention specialist, talk to financial aid if you're having problems. Okay, that's a big thing we're here to help with. On that, anything real quick on that, because I have a couple other things I want to mention, but Nicolette, Yvonne, Leslie, anything you want to add?
I would just say make sure to be really aware of where your credits are at because of that differential tuition. Mine kicked in my third semester at CSU and I had no idea about it, and it completely threw off my balance. And so they had to increase my estimated cost of attendance. So grants and scholarships could cover that differential tuition. So just be really mindful of that. So your estimated cost of attendance can be adjusted so you aren't having to worry about paying for that cost.
Absolutely. Yeah, good call. All right. I have a couple of things I want to talk about real quick. One is additional scholarship searches that I want to give you some tips on. And the other, actually that might have been, there was one other thing before getting that. If any of you are ever thinking about study abroad, any kind of education abroad experience, whether that's a semester or just maybe one of the 10-day long trips that happen, like for example, hopefully, fingers crossed, next year, the AAC has its own study abroad experience in Morocco that we started last year. We had to cancel it this year though, obviously. But last year we had it where we went to Morocco for 10 days for a pretty good experience. If you're looking for any kind of education abroad opportunity while in college, there are ways to get that paid for, to get scholarship for that. One of the biggest ones for Ed Abroad programs is the Global Access Award. There's another really big scholarship called the Gilman Scholarship, but the Global Access Award is specifically for CSU students. Even more specifically, AAC students get priority, which is dope. So if you want to study abroad at all and you're like, how do I pay for this? Because it might cost more sometimes for those experiences than a regular semester. Sometimes it costs less, actually. Like I have a friend who went to Prague for way cheaper during his first semester than they paid at CSU. But anyway, if you're interested in that, we have a workshop coming up on, let's see, it's on March 23rd for the Global Access Award, 4 to 5 p.m. We've been sending out information about it on our newsletter. Actually, Ricky, one of our retention specialists in our office, he kind of organizes that and helps run that. So he'll have more information, but he's presenting information on it March 23rd, 4 to 5 p.m. And that's a pretty cool opportunity. The other financial aid one I'll mention too is, oh man, now I'm spacing what was. Hold on, I'm talking about study abroad and summer scholarships. If you're interested in applying for, or you're going to take summer classes at CSU, specifically at CSU, you can get some additional funding for scholarships because typically the way financial aid works, it covers your fall semester and your spring semester, and typically that's it. However, there are ways to get financial aid to cover summer session, right? You can take some of maybe the grant money or potentially some of the loan money you were offered for a spring or fall semester. Actually, if you're not going to use it or you don't need it as much, you can push it to the summer session. There's other scholarships available just for summer. There's a workshop happening at the AAC that is hosted by summer school people that can talk more about summer financial opportunities for folks. And that is happening maybe we can put this information out in our email or in the newsletter too, but I feel like it's coming up in, oh man, when is it? Sorry. In March. Anyone know off the top of their head? Crap. Where is it? Where is it? Hold on. Give me a second. My internet's being really slow. That's why I'm trying to find it here. All right. Anyway, once I find it, I'll let you all know. But there are ways to pay for that. And then there was a question that came up about what happens if you, like, how do you get reimbursements? Or like, what happens if you move out of the dorms? Let's say you're living in the residence halls or the dorms and you moved out because of COVID. Like, you can get reimbursement for that. If you paid for a spring semester living in the residence halls and you're not living there, you should get reimbursed for that. You'll have to talk to housing and financial aid. You can talk to Brandy. She might know the people over in housing that can help deal with that. But you should be able to get a reimbursement. Or even if you move out mid-semester. However, I do know they're not letting people get reimbursed for after that spring break, April 20th or whatever, 18th. So when spring break's over and we're all going remote again anyway, and everyone has to move out, they're not doing reimbursements for the last 2 weeks. So if you have to move out before that, you can get reimbursed. And it didn't work. Okay, I can't find the date, but we'll let you know for summer school information. Okay, any other questions before I do my last little piece here? Okay, covered a ton of random stuff. The last thing I wanted to share real quick is a couple of sneak tips on the Office of Financial Aid's website. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. Let me just do this one. All right. So I pulled up the Office of Financial Aid's homepage here. Okay. So if you went to college or financialaid.collegestate.edu, or you can search for it under the CSU search tool. This is what pulls it up, right? There's tons of stuff here. If you need to set up a payment plan, so like your bill, you can't make they didn't used to offer this. This is new and exciting, that you can actually set up a payment plan with CSU if you can't pay your full bill off, right? Which is an awesome way to help cover some of the excessive costs. That way they won't put a hold on your account because they know you have a payment plan set up, and they can work with you around like doing these monthly installments to get your tuition and all that paid off. If you haven't set up direct deposits, I would do that, because if you get a refund check, let's say you get full amount of scholarships and grants, right? And then you get another scholarship that comes in, and they're like, well, you don't owe anything to CSU anymore. You've paid off your bill, but they can refund you, send you a direct refund of that scholarship, which can be great because that can help out with rent, food, other expenses, right? And that can be really helpful. So make sure you sign up for direct deposit. It's a lot better than risking doing a check by mail. I don't know who still does checks by mail other than this guy because I'm old, but it's better to sign up for direct deposit. Yeah. Okay. You can also always check out important dates. They've got other things going on to kind of be aware of. But the one thing I want to show you, types of financial aid, scholarships. Boom, I'm almost out of time. This is perfect. All right. Down here, they have some information on additional scholarships affiliated with CSU that are not part of the CSU scholarship application. So you click on that, and it's going to bring you to these. Now, unfortunately, the Reicher one is I would encourage all of y'all to apply for that. I know the deadline already passed for Reicher, but there's another one coming up that's not on here. It's PUCSTA. The PUCSTA scholarship is also eligible. A lot of our students are eligible for it. That's due March 1st. I think there's part of that is connected to CSUSA, but I do believe they require a few extra things, extra essay, answering a few extra questions, etc. Gil Gutierrez Memorial Scholarship is a great one that many of you might qualify for. EOC is another one. Definitely check out these scholarship opportunities. The last thing, perfect, hold on. Yes, summer, yes, it is, perfect. So thanks, Nicolette. March 29th, 3 p.m. in that summer session. They're going to talk about registration, but also how to help pay for summer class. Okay, and then the last little thing I'm going to show you is this. How many of you know about searching for scholarships? Damn it, wrong button. Searching for scholarships outside of CSU. There we go, like national scholarships or statewide. It's hard to see. Your faces are blank. Okay, but if you click on this link from this website, scholarships outside of CSU, it's going to bring you to what they try to update it every week. Sometimes it's not always updated, but this list of all these scholarships, guess what? That's just page 1 of 35. So there are 35 pages like this of scholarships, national and statewide. What you can do to narrow that down is search by keyword. If you're a biomedical sciences student, bummer. Okay, hold on, let me try a different one. Engineering. Give it a second. There we go. All right, boom. Searching that keyword, engineering, a lot of these scholarships might be offered just for engineering students. Okay, there's quite a bit there. Bummer that biomedical sciences didn't have more, but if I were to specify my search, look, a little bit more specific, biological, let me just type in biological. See if that comes up with anything. You can type in first generation. You can type in a race or ethnicity that you hold, an identity, right? There's some scholarships available for specific folks. And so it's a good idea to search, right, for these things. Some of them, yes, have ended, but some of them haven't. It's a good idea to double check this. Check it throughout the year, actually. Some of these deadlines are random, like November. But that is a really cool tool to search for national and statewide scholarships. Yes, they might be more competitive, but you might also just get something. We've had a number of our students receive national scholarships. So any questions on financial aid stuff that I missed, didn't cover? Seeing 2 head shakes, 3 head shakes. No one else? Everyone else feels good? Okay, real quick notice again, if you are part of regular AAC Arrive, a couple of quick things. Please, I'm going to put this in the chat one more time. Please sign in real quick if you haven't, clicking on that link. So that's not STEM Arrive students, just AAC Arrive students. Also, I think we're good in this group. I'm not going to post the other one. But if you missed any sessions, you'll make it up. I know Nicolette, I don't know, you have any announcements for your side?
Just make sure to do the post discussion board by this Friday at midnight and do the post activity, which is watching another financial aid video. Perfect.
Cool. Well, thank you all. Let us know if you have any questions. Talk to your retention specialist. Talk to Brandy. You can email her away. Let her know you're an AAC student. She's down to meet with you and talk to you. So, cool.